It was just this Christmas that went by, and things were starting to get pretty busy. I had to start buying presents for the family. I had finished shopping, but I still needed to grab a present for my little cousin. She isn't very hard to shop for since she's only 4. She likes things like Peppa Pig and My Little Pony. She really liked, and I said liked for a reason, was Max and Ruby. So when I decided to go look for a present, I figured something like a Max and Ruby DVD would have been perfect, since she liked to watch it on a daily basis. However, when Christmas meant that most online DVDs were sold out on most places, I went on eBay as well. But I figured that I could not trust the condition of the DVDs would have been in, so I stuck in the rut for a while until the package arrived. I was at home scrolling through a stupid DVD until I heard the sound of something being pushed into my letterbox. I got a hold of it before my dog did and looked at the package. It seemed to be wrapped fairly badly, with what looked like grease marks and stains on it. Naturally, like anyone would, I decided to open the package. Inside was something that I could not explain. It was a Max and Ruby DVD, but I had not seen anything like this one online. It was just like some kid who had drawn out the cover with a marker. The title was just Max and Ruby, and what looked like poorly drawn illustration of Max and Ruby on the front. There were no names or anything, so I put it back at that list had at least list of 4 episodes, with blunt titles. Episode 0001, Episode 0002, Episode 0003, and Episode 0004. I gave the DVD a watch over, and to my surprise, all the episodes were in perfect quality. It just seemed to have no flaws, as if it was a real DVD, just with a homemade cover. The only thing I thought was odd was the episode selection screen. The episode had names, but they were called Max and Ruby 1, with the numbers being changed as I went down the list. The actual scene selection screen was just a plain white text with a black text with the episode lists and nothing else. After giving it much thought, I decided to change the cover to something a little nicer by printing out a DVD cover that I had found on Google using to track down the names of the episodes so they were labeled right. I left the episode screen alone because I figured it was self-explanatory. Christmas went by and everything went fine. I gave my cousin her DVD and she was happy with it. It went all through Christmas, but only because she had not watched it yet. On Boxing Day, my family had gone out for dinner and left me to babysit my cousin. I wasn't too bothered about it being left home alone, so I figured now was a good time to put the DVD on the cover for her. I had put the DVD in and let it play, and while I was in the kitchen eating my dinner, from what I could hear, she had watched from episode 1 to 3 so far. I was just about to finish off my noodles when I heard my cousin screaming from the other room. Dropping everything, I ran to the living room and saw my cousin curled up onto the floor screaming. I had looked up at the TV and felt my heart lump in my throat. What I caught was a glimpse of the most disturbing thing I had ever seen, and it was prepared to be a frame of Max and Ruby standing next to each other in complete darkness. But what made it so horrible was their lack of faces. They had lost their noses and mouths, and their eyes were replaced with big, hollow holes. The colors were disgusting blood red, and there was a faint static in the background. The sound was replaced with what looked like Max and Ruby theme song playing backwards, and the faint static in the mix of it all. It had to be the most disturbing thing I've ever seen, and it must have been black on the screen for at least 20 seconds before the screen went black and the DVD turned off. To which was alone was weird because DVDs do not usually turn off by themselves. I was able to calm my cousin down, telling her it was not real and she just had a nightmare, as she had fallen asleep in front of the DVD. However, I knew in my mind it was completely real. My parents had run me up and told me they were going to be out all night, so this night was going to be the best opportunity to look at the DVD more closely. I did not mention to them, but as soon as I hung up, I grabbed the DVD and I did not mention to them, but I snuck it on my laptop. And as soon as it loaded, I noticed that episode 0004 had now been replaced with Rest in Peace, Mommy and Daddy, which had sent a deep chill down my spine. Since my cousin was now asleep, I plugged in my earbuds so she can sleep without hearing anything. Normally, an episode of Max and Ruby would have 3 short stories, but this episode only had 1. It started off quite lighthearted. Max and Ruby were playing tag in the garden, and their parents were on the porch watching them play. However, something was off. The sound was playing in reverse, and the parents' faces were that of sadness. A film grain became to get present, which grew worse and worse every second, and it panned to the mother and father in a deep voice of sorrow. The father spoke. "It's such a shame," he sighed. It then cut to a short episode of static and a large scream, followed by the sound of two people choking, while the mother and father mumbled to each other in the background. It was impossible to understand them. The sounds were so realistic, it made me almost physically sick. R.I.P. Mommy and Daddy. The screen then cut to what seemed to be a white split second, and then the scene transitions over to Max and Ruby standing in what looked like a gravestone labeled R.I.P. Mommy and Daddy. The two of them had no faces, and at this point there was no sound, apart from the faint static. The scene only remained on screen for about a minute and a half before it cut halfway into black. It then changed the scene again, now showing Max and Ruby sitting on Ruby's room, while indescribable whispering became apparent and grew louder each time. Both of them were sobbing uncontrollably, while transparent clips of murder playing in reverse flashed on screen. The father pulled out a knife from his neck and picked up a bloody axe and hacked away at the corpse of the mother before she came back to life, and then he walked upstairs. By this point the whispering became louder, but more of the whispering voices started to disappear, and it became every second, and it was a rather angry woman's voice who screamed, "Burning in hell!" I was absolutely horrified. The scene had then changed to a most disgusting, yet saddest thing I have ever witnessed. It showed Max sitting in his room. He was standing on a chair with a noose hanging from the ceiling. He had brought it around his neck. The scene then faded to black and static got louder, almost instantly. It then cut to Ruby walking in on her brother. She let out a gut-twisting scream. The camera was panned on her face as the sound of the chair being kicked and the same choking sound from earlier began to play. The picture of Ruby's face then stayed on the screen for about good 5 minutes. This time her eyes had returned the same gaping holes. Then Ruby started crying as before. There were no facial features, and the static slowly grew louder and drowned out the sound of her cries. The scene then cut back to with the loud static, and when the screen returned, Ruby was sitting now on her own in the garden with two gravestones. One was labeled R.I.P. Mommy and Daddy, and the other R.I.P. Brother. She then started to look at the camera with glowing blue pupils, then began to speak to me. "Well, whoever's watching this is because you never watched me in any of my brother's episodes, so one of these days you will regret this." The screen then faded to black afterwards. At this point I had already been sick and was sitting all shaken. The episode seemed to have come to the end at least. As Max and Ruby theme song played slowly in reverse, I was about to eject the DVD when the same thing in an image came up, like it did on the TV. This time there was a text above with the two rabbits that said, "Death is our only release." There were no credits or anything else. It just stayed on this for a few seconds before the DVD finally popped out on my laptop. I sat there trying to contemplate on what had happened. In my shock and fear, I had made the stupid decision to break the DVD up as much as I could before leaving the house. I shoved pieces of it down the drain. Thankfully, I kept a few screenshots and saved them onto my laptop. The next couple days went past and nothing unusual happening. I just had a few nightmares about the DVD, but it quickly went on as well. My cousin had gone back home, along with the rest of the family, luckily. It was late one night, and my parents had gone out for dinner, leaving me to watch TV. I heard what sounded like someone posting something through the door. At this point, the DVD had left my mind, and I had not told anyone about it. However, it all came flooding back to me. When I looked down at the letter in front of me, it was a messily folded up, and it read, "Death is our only release."